Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutare. Excuse me. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Chinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve. Gauravani Pacharine Nirvise Susunyavadi Paschati Dasatarine. This is not fitting the way I thought it would. Hold on. Okay. Hare Krishna. So we are now continuing the discussion or classes we've been having for about the last month about the roles of male and female. And one of the points that I made, and I don't know, hold on a second. Oh, I want to record this, but I need to put an SD card. Excuse me for a moment. I need to put an SD card, and I don't know which one it is, because one is for audio and one is for video. So you will have to bear with me for a moment. I will try to do this and speak at the same time. I just have to see what's on here, because I record these and then they go up on SoundCloud rather than having to get the audio off of the YouTube. So one of the points I made, and as you know, some of the things that Prabhupada says, being ancient wisdom and being part of an ancient culture and being transcendental or sattvic, are sometimes misunderstood by persons like ourselves, or misunderstood by people in general. And so it's our duty to understand Prabhupada's words in full context of everything that he and the Shastras speak about, and the context in which Prabhupada spoke it, and the context in which that knowledge came from. Because if we don't consider all these things, then we can misunderstand something. Because we generally will look at something through the lens, obviously, of our own consciousness, but the culture and the knowledge, the culture in which we're raised and the knowledge which we have. So, well, according to me, if Prabhupada says this, it means this. But we obviously are limited in understanding and limited in knowledge. So therefore, the point is that the Shastras were always meant to be understood through the Guru, through the teacher, because otherwise we, by the nature of the modes we're in and by the nature of our knowledge and experience, we may misunderstand. Obviously some things we won't misunderstand, but there are more difficult things, difficult passages, difficult topics, which are prone to be misunderstood by the modern mind, because whenever you're dealing with principles, morals, difficult philosophy, that is not commonly understood in today's world, then naturally we'll try to understand it through a filter of our own knowledge and experience, which may sometimes fail us, and we may come up with a wrong conclusion. And I was just thinking this morning how, as young devotees, of course, we heard many things Prabhupada said about women which didn't necessarily sit right with us or make sense to us. And a lot of us, of course, didn't dwell on it because we understood that we didn't understand, and we understood that we will understand, and we also, someday we'll be more clear. And many of the things that Prabhupada said didn't seem particularly relevant to us in the 70s in our preaching. And also a lot of what he said, it didn't seem that by his behavior he was enacting those things that he said. He didn't mistreat women. He didn't make them second-class citizens and so forth. So I think for us, a lot of the way we understood what Prabhupada was saying was through how he acted in regards to those things he was saying. In this case, we're talking about women. But I just wanted to share a realization that I had. Of course, Prabhupada would say things like women, young girls would be married very young, at ages which would be illegal in our country, and it was a father's duty to get them married before puberty. And if they became attached to a man, then they would be dedicated to that man for the rest of their life. So you don't actually, when we think of a woman getting married and actually moving into the man's home at the age of 13, we think, well, that's wrong and that won't work. And pretty much it doesn't work in our society, and it's not even allowed. But it worked in that society. So then in trying to understand that, then we have two things that we're dealing with. One, we say, well, this wouldn't work in our society. And we tried it in ISKCON, and we tried arranging marriages, and arranged marriages were often huge failures. That's another topic. Was it the fact that arranged marriages are bad, or was it the fact that we didn't know how to arrange marriages, or was it the fact that we thought that because it was arranged, the couples would just dutifully take their roles as husband and wife and stay together? It may be many things. But let's fast forward into the world today, in which we see many problems related to sex, not only divorce, but abortion, single parenting, venereal disease, rape, and just go down the list. And you begin to think, well, if we had a society in which sexual restraint was more dominant, in which female protection was more dominant, in which there was more sobriety towards sex and marriage, then we wouldn't have many of these problems, or we wouldn't have the problems to the same degree. They wouldn't be so severe. And as you consider this, you realize, yes, that's true. If girls were married young, that would eliminate the illicit sex, or the need for them to do what young girls do today to get men and so on, and dating, and then being raped on a date, and so anyway, we all know the problems. So I always felt that what Shastra said, the traditional things about what Shastra said, were impractical and quite foreign. We all felt that in the modern world. The girl and the boy, when the boy's like 11 to 13 and the girl's around 8, the parents match them up, and when she's around 11, 12, 13, she moves in the home and becomes the quote-unquote, we would look at it, slave of that family. Okay, it's not exactly, the way we look at that and we think, well, this is horrible. She's just being a slave. She's being taken from her parents, and now she's a slave in many ways. Okay, it's not exactly like that. But even if it were as bad as we thought it was, then we have to look at alternatives. Okay, so what are your alternatives? Abortion. Abortion is very bad. We all agree abortion is murder, so that's something bad. Single parenting is very bad. Exploitation of women is very bad. So she's a slave. But Prabhupada said, actually, she's not a slave. She's willingly serving because she's being loved and protected. And, women have become more slaves in the so-called free culture. And they're prostituting themselves. So they're slaves in that sense. And so as I looked at the options, the option to the Vedic paradigm or traditional paradigm and what's going on in the world today, then all of a sudden the Vedic paradigm started to make sense. It never made sense in terms of application, because I always saw how difficult it was to apply. It made sense theoretically, and to the degree we are able to apply some of the principles, to that degree, it would solve some of the problems we're facing. So obviously, stable marriages solves lots of problems, all kinds of problems. Celibacy, chastity, it solves all kinds of problems. So that's how I came kind of full circle from the point of Prabhupada saying something, telling myself, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense, but it must be true, and it must be that I just don't understand, and kind of putting it on a back burner because it wasn't necessarily relevant to my life. And then learning the philosophy, evolving in Krishna consciousness, understanding more about life in general, more about culture in general, more about the philosophy, more about Varnashram. Then over the years, starting to understand, oh, this does make sense, and this does make sense, and that makes sense, even though previously I thought it was a very antiquated way of looking at the world. Now, again, as I said, the world is different today. So even if something makes sense, socially it may not be applicable. But the principles are the principles. The principles are always valid. So if you say a girl should get married at the age of 13, what's the principle? The principle is that you don't want to allow unrestricted mingling between male and female, and boyfriend and girlfriend, and dating and trying out this partner and that partner. It doesn't work. It's statistically demonstrated that doesn't work for stability in society, for stability in marriage. So if a girl can, at a young age, can find a suitable boy, and the suitable boy is trained and will take care of her and love her and so on, wouldn't that be better than women, on dating sites trying to find a man? Of course it would be. If the parents and relatives can find suitable spouse for the boy, suitable spouse for the girl, if the boy is trained and knows that, not trained, trained, and knows that the parents will do that, he doesn't have to go searching for girls, he doesn't have to dress up and show off his stuff, she doesn't have to show off her stuff to try to attract the boys. They don't have to go on dates, it's taboo. And so you have this very sober society. And so many problems, so much depression, so many psychological problems are all connected with trying to attract, please, and impress the opposite sex. And so you're worried about your body, you're worried about how you look, you're worried about this and that, you feel bad about yourself because you don't have sufficient sex appeal, and then you have self-esteem issues and so on, all based around sex appeal, which would not be an issue in a more traditional society because the matches are not just about sex appeal, but they're about putting people together that could work well and live well and be happy and evolve spiritually. So that was a thought that I was having this morning. Before I give the class, usually in the morning, I meditate on what we can talk about also. Of course, we're reading, and we will continue reading, and we'll take off where we left off, about the position of women. But sometimes I meditate on various aspects of this topic and do some studying. And I did some studying, and I can't remember if I mentioned this last week or if I studied this during the week. But even if I mentioned it last week, it's worth mentioning again. About protection of women. And whenever we hear this idea of protection of women, there are always going to be some people who think that's demeaning. Women should be protected. That means they're inferior. That means they're weaker. That means the men are stronger, and stronger could equal better. So women need to be protected. It means the men are better, the women are less, which then means men are smarter, women are not as smart. And better can mean so many things. And you can, go off in your head about, as soon as you use the word protect, then it means better, and better means A, B, C, D, E. And then pretty soon, the idea of protecting women means, men are just better. Men are more powerful. Men are the smarter ones, and so on. And that's why they should protect them. Now, the concept of protection is within a context where a man is sense-controlled, a man is responsible, a man is stable, a man is spiritually strong, a man is materially strong. Because if you're going to protect somebody, you need those qualities, right? And those qualities are very attractive to women, and those are the things women look for in a man. Women don't want a flimsy man. A flimsy man is not attractive. Just like for a man, an intelligent woman is attractive. A woman who's confident is attractive. Men don't like women who are full of self-doubt and low self-esteem and depressed and complaining. Similarly, women don't like men like that. And in addition, women like men who are very spiritually strong, sense-controlled, emotionally stable, responsible, good providers, and so on. So, the idea of man protecting women, what does it mean for a man? It means these things, that a man must be stable. That's what it means. I think we had spoken about this last week. A man must be stable. Emotionally, sensually, mentally, psychologically, physically, in all ways. So he provides the stability for a woman, which a woman so much wants stability. A woman needs stability from a man. So when we talk about protection, let's look at it in terms of certain qualities which are male by nature. In a healthy male or in a healthy society where men are healthy, you would see certain qualities, certain strengths in a male that may be less prevalent by nature in a female. Females have their strengths which men don't have, and they complement one another. And men have strengths which women don't have. It's not that only men have strengths, but they both have strengths, but they complement one another. And so, just as women depend on certain strengths that men have, men depend on certain strengths that women have. So, when we say women are nurturing, those are certain strengths that men depend on, or men want, or men need in a woman. And a man protection, there are certain strengths that a man has that a woman requires. It makes up for the difference. So there's not exploitation. It's like you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You have bread, you have peanut butter, you have jelly, right? So they all work together. So the man's the peanut butter, the woman's the jelly, they're both the bread. It doesn't matter who's who, it's just that they go together well, right? And so the peanut butter isn't saying, well, hey, look at, without me, you jelly, you'd be nothing. I'm all the protein. I'm the substance. Yeah, and then the woman says, yeah, but without me, you'd just be dry and hard to swallow and sticky and gooey, and I smooth you out. So it's like that. It's like they support one another in different ways. So when we say protection, then you get this idea, exploitation, better, the name of protection, I'll exploit you. But what it actually means is, it just means men being a man, and being a man, it's their nature to want to protect. That's the male nature. It's ingrained within them. Just like a dog, if you walk by the house, the dog will bark. It's ingrained. Dogs are security guards. That's their DNA. You don't have to train them to be security guards. They are. You don't have to train men. Men by their DNA want to protect women. But the problem is, in our society today, many men are not men, so they don't manifest the qualities necessary to protect women. And then that creates an imbalance. Then the woman has to make up for the lack of those qualities in her man because he doesn't have them, and then you start seeing women exhibiting more male qualities, which many women can. Not necessarily that they want to or they like to, but they can. But just because they can doesn't mean they should. And I think that's where we get sidetracked, because a lot of what we see in society is our women are doing things because the men don't do them. And so the women step up to the plate to do them. Just like sometimes men will take care of kids because their wife is ill or psychologically not well, or the man can't work and the woman can. And so the man steps up to the plate and takes the female role. So some men can do that, some men can take the male role. But in general, men and women have more natural tendencies. And so that's a very natural male tendency, is to be a man to be very protective, sheltering of woman. It's just psychology. And if a man is actually a man, he can do it. By nature of his body and psychology, he can do it. So what we've been talking about in these classes is how when you take something which is a system which works, and then you read about it, and then you relate it to the modern world, you think, well, how could that work? Because you think, well, where are those men? Men protecting women, they just exploit them sexually, basically, because they're not controlled. And it's true, and that's my whole point. It's true, and then it skews our understanding of philosophy because we don't have examples of it. So it's difficult to understand. So if we want to understand Prabhupada's books and Prabhupada's words, we have to understand them within an entire context. If we just understand them through the vision of our experience, we'll misunderstand, because Prabhupada says things and we'll say, well, that's not true. And it may not be true in every circumstance, but Prabhupada's talking about specific circumstances. Now, I want to give an example, which I think is just an amazing example, or a brilliant example. Hare Krishna. So, this is an example of a man and a woman who are Brahminical, a man and a woman who are Kshatriya or Rajasic, a man and woman who are Tamasic. So, if you take a Brahminical man and woman, and you put them in a room, and you say, we want to give you $10,000 and take a vacation. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? They'll say, oh, wow, that's amazing, thank you. Well, with $10,000, we could probably spend a year in India, because it doesn't cost that much to live. $10,000, we could fly there and live there for a year. So let's spend a year in Mayapur, Vrindavan. The Brahminical couple, that's what they'll want to do. And what are the amorous pastimes? How does a Brahminical couple exchange romantically? By worshiping the deity, by doing kirtan, by reading Bhagavatam, by discussing philosophy. That's how they exchange. That's their romance. They like one another, and what's romantic for them is to talk about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary to the 10th canto. That's for them, that's romance. Isn't that interesting? So now, if Prabhupada says something about male and female nature and couples, and this is what it's like, we know from our own experience, if we are Brahminical by nature, or we know other Brahminically inclined devotees, we know, well, that what Prabhupada was saying does not at all indicate these kinds of couples, because he must have been talking about couples in passion and ignorance. It seems to be that this is what Prabhupada's describing. A woman always likes this, a man always likes this, and Prabhupada's talking about romantic affairs, sexual affairs, and so forth. And so we understand Prabhupada's talking about a certain mode of nature, and a lot of times he generalizes, because in Kali Yuga, most people are in the mode of ignorance. Prabhupada said, a little passion, but mostly ignorance. So when we see these generalizations, who is Prabhupada speaking about? He's speaking about people in general who are overcome by the mode of ignorance. Just like we're going to read something. Well, let me read it now, because this fits well into what I'm talking about. I was present on 4 occasions when Prabhupada repeated the Chanakya, this is Jamuna, Chanakya adage, never trust a woman or a politician. On each occasion, Srila Prabhupada looked me in the eye to see my response. On the last occasion in Mumbai, 1973, he quoted the saying, heartedly laughing in front of a small group of men. Then he said, what do you think, Jamuna? Immediately I retorted, of course, it is true, Srila Prabhupada. Whereupon he became grave, looked at me with great feeling, and said, but you are not a woman, you are a Vaishnava. So that's my point. Prabhupada's quoting Chanakya Pandit, and Chanakya Pandit is saying women are less intelligent. And of course, we've been having this discussion, what do you mean by intelligence? Because anytime you make such a blanket statement without defining what you mean, then it doesn't mean anything, because we have to know what we're talking about. And if I'm making an assumption about what intelligence is, and you're making another assumption, and I say, this class of people are not as intelligent as this class of people. What do I mean? I could mean this class of people have kinesthetic intelligence. They're better athletes. This class of people have musical intelligence. They're better musicians. And we know Africans, African Americans, black people, the average black person, is like, a professional singer. They're just like amazing musicians by nature. They're just like, if you compare them to white people, they'll run circles around them musically and athletically as well. It's their nature. So when you say this group is more intelligent, what kind of intelligence are you talking about? Because this group has kinesthetic intelligence or musical intelligence. That's just who they are. So that's one point. What do you mean when you say anything? Define it so we know we're on the same page. We're not making assumptions. The point being made here, which is so important for understanding Prabhupada's books, is there may be generalizations. In Kali Yuga, the generalizations will be applicable to many, many people because most people are affected heavily by tamaguna and a little bit by passion and virtually no goodness. So when Prabhupada is saying A, B, C, D, and then you think, but I know people who are not like that, or my mother's not like that, or my brother's not like that. And I'm not there to disagree with that. We're just trying to understand. Prabhupada's talking about general tendencies amongst people in general. But now we're talking about devotees who are Brahminical, Transcendental, Vaishnavas, and they don't fit in those categories. Or your brother, who is a very spiritual person, doesn't fit in that category. So we have to understand things within context. Married life is all about sex. Well, maybe for this couple it is, but not for this Brahminical couple. Prabhupada made this statement which was so difficult to understand and has created concern that it's in our books, and the statement that women like to enjoy being raped. And so the women read that and say, well, I don't enjoy being raped. And so naturally it begs the question, what did Prabhupada mean by rape? Then who is he referring to? And what is he referring to? Well, do Brahminical men and women, they're not even really interested in sex, what to speak of rape. What about people who are heavily influenced by tamagun? Every weekend they go out and party and get drunk. Do they like it? Sometimes, yes, they do. Contextually, who likes to be raped? Not many people, but people heavily influenced by the mode of ignorance. They like all kinds of things that Sattvic people don't like, that we would be appalled by. So that's an example. What did Prabhupada mean by that word rape? Men who are sexually strong. A person who's sexually powerful, that was not an exact synonym, but also a connotation that Prabhupada explained. And so we're trying to understand, did Prabhupada mean all women like to be raped? I think if you did a survey, you would find most women would say no. And a few honest women might say, well, if it was that guy, yeah. True or true? Yeah. So we have to understand things within context. Now, another problem which I've spoken about, and this is quite a problem that faces all of us and faces our society, and it's our inability to understand Shastra properly within the context of all the body of wisdom of Shastra, because we don't always have all the body of wisdom at our disposal, or we don't always know it, and we don't always especially understand the culture and how what is being taught was applied within that culture. So it's very easy to misunderstand, women like to be raped, women are less intelligent, and whatever. Now, there's another thing that Prabhupada does, and this is more sensitive. He makes sometimes what would be considered racist statements, which are basically just observations about a particular race or a particular class of people. And so how do we deal with that? That's a difficult one. And again, we go back to my original premise. Look at how Prabhupada dealt with people. Was he racist? Definitely not. Was he discriminatory, prejudiced? Definitely not. In fact, when Prabhupada went to Africa, he was so upset that they were preaching to the Indians. He said, "You're in Africa, preach to the Africans. I didn't come to Africa to preach to the Indians." There's this really funny story, because some of the African devotees one day came in Bhagavatam class. Prabhupada was missing some of his clothes, and he saw some of the brahmacharis had just taken his clothes off the line and were wearing it. And so it's like, okay, that's interesting. So in Detroit, when they got the temple, it was in considered a very dangerous neighborhood. I guess it was predominantly African-American neighborhood as well. And the devotees, actually before they paid for the building, signed the contract, they said, "Prabhupada, we have second thoughts because this is quite a dangerous neighborhood. And we're afraid that, it's not safe for us, it's not safe for the devotees, it's likely we'll be robbed and so forth." And Prabhupada said, "Invite the neighbors to come, give them prasadam, and then tell them that you can steal whatever you want." Whether he was serious or not, my point is Prabhupada did not discriminate. And because the connotation, obviously, what the devotees were saying, although they didn't say it, was, this is a dangerous neighborhood, which is synonymous to, this is a African-American neighborhood, which is synonymous to, they're going to steal. So that was indirectly, without saying it, they said, there are people in this neighborhood who are black, and black people steal, and they're going to steal from us, so I don't think we should buy this building. And Prabhupada understood what they were saying. And Prabhupada saying, invite them in, let them steal if that's what they want. But we'll make them Krishna conscious, so they won't want to steal, and they'll like us, and they'll become devotees. So, was Prabhupada prejudiced against any certain class of people? No. Now, sometimes we hear that Prabhupada went to South Africa and he actually liked apartheid. And you think, oh my God, that is the most politically incorrect statement I've ever heard. Now, did Prabhupada like all the injustices perpetrated on the blacks and Indians? Of course not. What Prabhupada meant was that apartheid works within a society which is governed by Brahmins. Because if you look at Vedic history, the Brahmins worshipped the deity and they lived in their own neighborhood next to the temple. So they could have access. I think you see that in Sri Rangam. All the Brahmins lived near the temple. And then the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras. So they lived together. And it was actually beneficial for them to maintain their particular varna and the culture of that varna by living together. And we saw this in South Africa during apartheid, which was very bad. Apartheid was very bad for many people. But one thing we saw, which was good, of course, I'm not saying this validates the bad or it balances it, but one thing we saw is that Indian culture was stronger because Indians could only do business in a certain neighborhood and could only live in certain neighborhoods, so they all stayed together. So they maintained their culture. That's what Prabhupada meant. It was good because you could maintain your culture, right? Unfortunately, the government made huge mistakes by minimizing facilities to the black population, minimizing educational facilities, just everything. They were at a disadvantage. So naturally, they were being exploited. So did Prabhupada mean, it was good that the South Africans were exploiting the blacks? No, he just meant that apartheid enables the cultures to live together and maintain their own culture without being influenced by other cultures, which I think many, many people appreciate. If you have a certain culture, you like to live with people within that culture. You find this, like if you go to Los Angeles, there's a whole area, Chinatown, Mexican, Korean, like that. They have churches, the first Korean church of this, the first Hong Kong church of this. So people naturally tend to flock together. So we have to understand what Prabhupada meant. We can't just look at it at face value and say, oh, this is really bad, how could he say this? And we can't also speculate what he meant. We have to try to understand, based on other things that he said, what did he mean? Now, Prabhupada sometimes did make statements about certain races of people, which I'll say were not flattering. And it's like, how do you understand that? And why did he say it, and what was his point? Well, whenever Prabhupada made any point about races of people, he was always talking within the context of Varnashram of how we would organize society and what people would do according to their nature and tendencies. So by observing a certain nature of a certain class of people, you understand how they would be placed in society. So don't even have to talk about ethnic differences, just talk about Varna and ashram differences. Well, these people by nature are workers, these people by nature are teachers. And so by observing their nature, you know how to deal with them. So let's say, for example, dogs have a certain nature. And tigers and lions have a certain nature. So would it be politically incorrect for me to say that lions are dangerous and dogs are loving? No, it's just an observation of their nature. And therefore, by saying dogs are loving and lions are dangerous, of course some dogs are dangerous, but I'm generalizing here. Dogs make good pets, lions don't make good pets. Am I discriminating? No, I'm just stating a fact. And once you understand the fact, you realize I shouldn't make a lion my pet. In fact, I shouldn't go near a lion because it could kill me. And it's a fact. If you make a lion your pet, you can never trust it. There's a lion who's a pet. He performs in Las Vegas. And they perform for years. And the master thought, we have this trusting, loving relationship. And something happened in one show, and the lion attacked him. So you could say that, well, that could happen with a dog. Yes, it's true. But in general, you're safer with a dog as a pet than with a lion as a pet. And your baby is definitely safer with a dog as a pet than a lion as a pet. So am I saying something wrong by stating that? Stating what we know? And why am I stating that? So that you stay at a distance from a pet, from a lion. You don't. So when Prabhupada is making certain statements which seem to be very racist or prejudicial or however you want to label it, definitely not politically correct. It's within a context of saying this is the nature of these kinds of people, they should be dealt with in a certain way. Like, for example, here's something difficult. In Vedic society, I think about 90% of the population, 90+%, are Shudras. And Shudras are laborers. And that could be, high-tech labor, intellectual labor. It could be doctors, surgeons. But labor means they are employed. That's the definition of Shudra. You may be a genius. You may be a phenomenal actor or actress. But because you're employed, that's the definition of a Sudra. Brahmins are independent. I'm going to read your comments soon. I'm just like on a roll here. So, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, no. Yes. So, 90% of the population is Shudra. And according to Vedic culture, Shudras are not allowed to have money because they don't know how to spend it, because the nature of Shudra is that they just want to gratify their senses. Now, how could you say that in modern society? I'm running for president of the United States. Well, what's your policy? Well, my policy is that all the Shudras will only be allowed to be given enough money to maintain themselves. They'll have no extra spending money, because if they do, they'll misuse it because they're Shudras. But is it a fact that people misspend money? Yes. Is it a fact that people of Shudra mentality do not control their senses? Yes. So when Prabhupada's making these statements and talking about these things, he's talking about it theoretically, that here was Vedic culture, here was what it was like, here is why it was like this. But you rarely see, if ever, within the context of those conversations that Prabhupada's saying, so therefore, today, right now, this is what we should do. We should tell everybody, you should give us all your money because you're Shudras and you don't know how to spend it. You won't find a lecture where Prabhupada said that. Although you will find lectures in which he described, this is a Shudra, these are their qualities, this is a Vaishya, a Kshatriya, and a Brahmin. So when Prabhupada's making statements which are not politically correct, he's just defining the nature of certain classes of people, which is what Varnashram does. And Varnashram also describes people who are not within the Varnashram. They're called Mlechas and Yavanas. And this, again, another politically incorrect statement. Mlecha and Yavana, it just means people who basically have no culture because they're outside the Vedic culture. But what are you doing? You're just classifying a group of people and say, okay, this is this group of people. If this is this group, then how do we deal with this? This is this group of people. They have this disease. Oh, this disease is contagious. Oh, they need to be quarantined and we need to cure them. It's not a politically incorrect statement. It's just, this is a statement of fact. And so that's how Prabhupada is coming across. He's making statements of fact. He's not making statements of judgment. There's no hatred there. He's making statements of fact. And when you know Prabhupada, you know that whatever is going on inside his mind and heart is just, how can we help these people? But if you don't understand that, when you hear what he says, you think, how could he say that? That's so racist, or that's not politically correct. When Prabhupada says women should be protected, he's thinking about women. He's thinking about taking care of them. When he said women should be married young, he's thinking about taking care of them. When he says a woman should serve her husband and be under the protection of a husband, he's thinking about taking care of them. We think restriction. We think exploitation. And therefore we misunderstand what he's saying. He's not thinking like that. He's thinking this is the only way they'll be happy. They're not going to be happy liberated. They're going to be exploited by men. They should be protected by men, not exploited. The women are thinking, no, we need freedom. We want to be like the men. We want to be able to do whatever they want. And Prabhupada knows. But the men will exploit you if you do that. If you allow yourself to be open, they'll sexually exploit you in the name of your freedom. And I want to protect you. So therefore you need to be married and have a man who will protect you. And so the women, they misunderstand that because this is how our culture is today. Right? So it's a huge problem we have in understanding Shastra, and specifically understanding many of the not so politically correct statements that Prabhupada makes, is that we don't understand the context. And because we don't understand the context, we tend to understand it through our own context, through our own experience, through our own social lens. And a lot of this stuff will not make sense according to our social lens unless we understand the complete structure of Varnashram, Vedic culture, the different Varnas and ashrams, the various qualities of different individuals, and how those individuals are dealt with in a way that they can be productive members of society and not cause havoc in society. Just like when Kali came and Maharaj Parikshit said, get out of my kingdom, you can't be here. He said, why can't I be here? Because you're engaged in all sinful activities and this is not allowed in my kingdom. So was that politically incorrect to do that? No, he was maintaining the sanctity of his kingdom. Here is a man, he will destroy everything. So that's the angle that Prabhupada's coming from. He's thinking what is best for people materially and spiritually. Now, it's interesting because if you study Prabhupada's books, you'll see that the many things he says about society are things which would be beneficial for people materially, just totally on the material level. Talks about food production, water, talks about marriage, training of young boys, brahmacharya, the whole thing. And so much of that is all about material development, material stability, because you need that so that you can balance it with ashram. They go together. So when Prabhupada is talking this way, he's actually thinking about the welfare of people on every level, much more so than any politician, any so-called politically correct activist, political activist is. Prabhupada's looking at it in a holistic way on all levels. But we can easily misunderstand it because the things Prabhupada's saying, when he says it, we think, oh, if that happened, there would be huge exploitation. And it's probably true within the current context, it wouldn't work. But we have to understand it within the context that he's expressing it so we can understand the principles, so therefore we could apply the principles in the modern context. Then it wouldn't look exactly the way it looks today, but still we must understand the principle and then adapt it. Otherwise, we throw out the baby with the bathwater and we go, this isn't practical, and Prabhupada said this, but I just don't understand it, and why would he say that, and he's not being politically correct, and I can't tell people that he said this. No, you have to understand why he said it, what he meant. What did he mean by less intelligent? How did he deal with women? How is this culture in general understand women? What is woman? How do you understand woman? How do you understand man? What is male? What is female? You have to understand all these things before you can talk about it. And what is intelligence? How is intelligence defined in Shastra? What are the Sanskrit words for intelligence? Buddhi, medha, as we discussed last week. Medha is a different kind of intelligence. What kind of intelligence are you talking about? I was speaking to my godbrother, and he said when people ask him this question about women being less intelligent, he said, in some ways they're less intelligent than men, in some ways men are less intelligent than women. They have different kinds of intelligence. So, and you say women are less intelligent, it's more of an analytical type of intelligence that's being discussed. But there are other kinds of intelligence. Like we said last week, women do better in school. More women graduate from university. They have that kind of intelligence. So there's all kinds of different intelligence. So we have to understand Prabhupada's words contextually. Otherwise, you're going to misunderstand. You could make offense. Other people are going to misunderstand. We won't be able to express it, and so forth. And then, just like if we don't understand this idea of women being protected, if men don't understand that, then men will never become men because they don't know what it means to be a man, because they think men and women are equal and I don't need to protect them, and etc., etc. And then you have men who are not men because they've thrown out this idea of women need protected because they think it's not politically correct and it's prejudice and it's not fair, and then all of a sudden they start thinking it's better that I become more feminine. The woman thinks, well, I've just been pushed down by society, I need to become more male. And then you have no more men and women, and then things get convoluted. Does that make sense? Men, you have certain nature. Women, you have certain nature. You don't need to deny it. Even if a woman, you're the taekwondo champion of the universe, still you're a woman. You have a female nature. You may like to fight. You may have some higher levels of male hormones in your body, but it doesn't mean that you're entirely a male. You have a female nature. You like men to take care of you. You like men to spoil you. You like men to appreciate and respect you. Naturally, right? So if we try to deny these things, then we're denying a natural hierarchy that exists. And many devotees have made this point, probably many philosophers as well, that there's a natural hierarchy within the world, and to deny that hierarchy is foolishness. It's just to adapt to the hierarchy. There are some birds that are stronger than other birds. Some birds fly higher. Some animals are stronger than other animals. You recognize it, you deal with it. It doesn't mean this animal is better. It just means that they're stronger. It means they can run faster. It means that they eat this and they don't eat that. That's all. So, when Prabhupada says these things, then we think, well, if I said that, or if he said that, it would mean this, that I don't like these people. I think these people are stupid, or I think these people are bad. But when Prabhupada says it, it's not what he means. It's a statement of tigers kill, dogs will go get your newspaper and lick your nose. There's a difference between the animals. Squirrels run up trees, dogs do not. It's just an observation. And in making that observation, then we know how to deal with those animals without making judgments that I like the animal, I don't, or the animal's good or bad. It just is. This is how it is. If it is this way, why deny it in the name of being politically correct? Prabhupada, he didn't think that way. If something was a certain way and we needed to understand that it was a certain way, he would just tell us, this is how it is. So now you know how to deal with it. Or he would tell us, it's like this, don't become like that yourself. This is wrong, this is bad. It was not a judgment against these people. It was not a statement, these people are bad, I don't like them. Not a statement that God is going to send them to hell. It's just a statement that in this particular state of consciousness, this is how these people behave. This is how they think. This is how they act. Again, we understand Prabhupada is generalizing, not, like you say, black people are like this. How can you generalize? Is every black person like that? Jewish people like that? Is every Jewish people like this? White people are like this? Is every white person like this? Obviously not. As we said, we're all in different modes of nature. You may say white people are like this, black people are like this. A lot of black people are exactly the way you describe the white people. A lot of white people are exactly the way you describe the black people. So we understand these things. We know this from personal experience. So when Prabhupada's saying these things, we understand. He's generalizing. He's generalizing people in that certain mode of nature, that they're like this. And they may be like that because of the social environment. And maybe 30 years from now, they're not like that. They've been given opportunities, they've been given more facilities, they've been given better education, and the way they were 30 years ago is totally different than the way they are today. And maybe when Prabhupada said they're like this 30 years ago, many of them were. And now, today when we read it, we look at it and say, well, things are different. It's not like that anymore. This class of people that Prabhupada said were ignorant are now embody the top scholars and intellectuals in South Africa because the black people were now given opportunity to be educated. Like they say, there were no great women scientists and writers, and the women say, well, you never gave us opportunity. We had to write books using male pseudonyms because nobody would publish a book written by a woman. So, you have to be very rounded and broad-minded and knowledgeable to understand Shastra and to understand Prabhupada's statements. Otherwise, you will totally filter them through a very limited PC filter, and then things that Prabhupada said, unfortunately, you won't be able to understand and apply and utilize in your life or utilize in your preaching because you totally misunderstood it and just shot it down as something, I just don't agree with that, that's not right. As I said the other day, better than say I don't agree with it, just say I don't understand it. I need to understand this. Okay, so now we're going to go to your questions. It's become really hot here in Alachua. It's amazing. It's 8 in the morning and I'm sitting here completely sweating. It's crazy. So Bimal says, by mystical arrangement, I saw you went live and now I have joined. Well, you didn't know? You're not on our mailing list? If you're not on our list, if you go on my website, mahatmadas.com, there is a place where you can sign up to get notifications of these classes. Usually they're Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes the times change, and sometimes when I'm traveling, I can't do them. And sometimes when I'm traveling, I broadcast more classes because I'm giving more classes. So you can get on the online mailing list, or you can check my Facebook page because they're posted on, now hopefully posted on all Facebook pages. My Facebook page, my fan page, and another page called Mahatma's Hearts. They should be posted in all those. And then I asked Jenny to send out for all of you on the WhatsApp group that you can get the message. If you're not on the WhatsApp group, you should be able to get it on my website if we've changed the number. If you look at my daily video at the end, If you go to that number, you can sign up, and so that way you'll get notices. In the WhatsApp group, you'll get transcendental knowledge also. Lucy says, agreed. What she agreed with, that we don't know anymore. Lucy is from South Africa, so I think she's validating my observations of South Africa. I lived there during apartheid, so when I speak about South Africa, then I have some personal experience about it. One of the things I did see was that a certain class of the South Africans were basically part of the family of the white people, and the white people took very good care of them. Obviously not in every case, but in those people had the mentality that that was okay and they were happy. So we can't deny that some people will be very happy just being maids and servants within a family. We can't deny that some people won't be. But when there was freedom and apartheid was abolished, for some of those people, they had actually had it better, and being part of those families, and it was safer. As a fact, I'm not validating apartheid in that sense. But, there's always two sides of the story. Bimo says, I really like that you talk about male psychologists. I find men tend to forget how to be a man. Yeah. I think also some men never knew how to be a man. I tend to find more and more women exhibit masculine attributes because women are not willing to step up to men are not willing to step up to the plate. Yeah, exactly. It's a defense mechanism. Not to say that some women by nature may be more male, but obviously the society doesn't always encourage women to be women. You may feel as a woman that if you're too much like a woman, you're inferior or you'll be exploited, etc. But see, the point that Prabhupada makes when he's explaining these things and other things about traditional culture is that what we're doing in modern culture is not working. So although you are pushing it, but just open your eyes and see that it doesn't work. So how can you validate a system that doesn't work just because you say it's politically correct? Radha Priya says, from my own experience, men prefer women who are dependent. Men are afraid of women that have high self-esteem and show that they can deal with many things, especially in their professional role. But that may be also more true in your country. What it is a confident man will not be intimidated by a confident woman. A man who's not confident will be. An insecure man, what you're describing is our insecure men. Secure men will like women who are strong but shy and gentle, that they don't exhibit their strength like a man exhibits it, competitively. They'll exhibit their strength in a supportive role. So let's say you're married and you're a very powerful woman, and you'll use that power to help your husband become more successful. Then he'll appreciate that. If you use that power to compete with him, he's not going to appreciate that. So he's attracted to your power, but he's attracted to it in a way that it works for him. And it doesn't make him feel emasculated. It doesn't make him feel less worthy. But your power is helping him. But when your power becomes competitive, then he won't like it. Or if that man lacks self-confidence and then he's around a confident woman, he may not like that because will make him feel weaker or less confident. I personally never, ever felt intimidated by a strong woman. I thought, it's great. She's strong. She can serve Prabhupada. She's bold. I just never like women who try to control men. I don't think any man likes a woman who likes to control him unless he recognizes that in certain areas she's just smarter and he submits. Please instruct me. Please guide me. Like I know women who are very expert in certain areas and I respect their wisdom because they know much more than me in those areas, but it doesn't intimidate me. It just helps me. And the fact that if I need to know something, I can call this devotee and say, you have a degree in this topic, and I'm speaking on this topic. Can you give me 5 points that I should speak about this? And she'll say, yes, this, that. And I go, this is very valuable. Thank you very much. So I'm very happy. And she doesn't hang up and say, this definitely proves that I'm smarter than you, and men shouldn't think they're so smart. It's not like that. She says, I'm happy to help, thank you. So she's in the mood of nurturing and serving. And although she knows something better than me, she doesn't dominate me. And although she knows something better than I do, I'm not intimidated by it. Because I'm not that kind of man. I'm not weak in that way. But if I were weak in that way, number one, I wouldn't call her up. And number two, if I did, I would just feel miserable. Like, oh, this woman's so smart and I'm not. And, I'm not a man. And you know what I'm saying? So that's the problem. So it's not a problem that women are strong. It's a problem that they try to dominate men. Unless the man asks you to dominate him, don't, because he won't like it. If you see a man running into the street and a car is coming to hit him, go grab him. Go yell at him. Yes, I'm not saying that you can't help men, but there should be a relationship in which the man is open to that. And that when you're married, you have to have that understanding. Because a man may say, I appreciate you're very intelligent, but just don't instruct me. It doesn't help me. Let me fall on my face and make the mistake. I will learn that way. And then you'll just have to say, okay. It's just the way it is, and you have to deal with it. So Rafu likes my book. I like my book also. And my new book, Living the Wisdom of Bhakti, is almost going to be on Kindle. It's available in India. And if you want to get the Bahar, well, just wait a bit. You'll be able to get it on Amazon in most places. But if you're in India and you want to get it, just send me an email. I'll tell you how to get it. Or we're putting up an ad on my website, which reminds me I have to put up the Indian address. So Bimo says, I agree with Eddie, and I would like to, Eddie is Radhapriya, I would like to request, what does the man need to do in order to increase his self-esteem so he feels he can handle any woman or man, for that matter? Well, it's not about artificial confidence and so forth. That's not what we're talking about. It's more about self-acceptance. Let's say I accept myself. I have a certain level of intelligence, certain level of ability, and I know this is my level of ability, and this is what it is, and it's not going to be, much better than this. I'm not going to become a quantum physicist. As my brain, that part that deals with quantum physics, it's not so developed, and there's not a whole lot I can do to develop it. I could take courses and like that, but Radhapriya she's going to understand it better than I do. Or course in chemistry. To me, it's just like chemistry is like, this is boring. What do I need to know this for? This is boring. And now I'm with Radhapriya and I think, oh my God, she's like got this degree in chemistry and a professor, and I barely passed my chemistry classes, and what kind of man am I? And I just feel horrible. That's all false ego. Like you have to outdo Radhapriya in chemistry to feel like a man. That's nonsense. That's not what a man is. As I said before, a man is sense-controlled, a man is stable, a man is responsible, a man is loving, a man is empathetic. That's what it means to be a man. And whatever qualities you have, whatever capabilities, not qualities, but qualities you can develop more, but inherent degrees of intelligence, talents, capabilities, and so on, just accept that's what you have according to your karma. That's what you were given. It doesn't matter if a woman is better than you at other things. That should have nothing to do with your sense of self. If it does, then it's all about false ego and comparing yourself to others, and the fact that you got in your head that you as a man have to be better than a woman in every area, and if you're not better, you're not a man. And there's all kinds of skewed ideas. So self-acceptance is not even optional, because you are who you are. So where's the question of not accepting who you are? Where's the question of denying who you are? Because you are who you are. So what's the point of denying who you are? Because you still are who you are, even if you deny it. Even if you make believe you're better than you are, you're not. You are, your IQ is a 120. You can make believe it's 150, but it isn't. It's 120. So why make believe? Just so you can feel better. You don't need to make believe you have a 150 IQ so you can feel more intelligent than everybody. Krishna has endowed you with specific abilities and talents and qualities. Use those in His service. Use those to maintain yourself. Be satisfied and happy. This is what you have in this life. Your worth is not your IQ. Your worth is not your capability. Be a devotee. Be a good devotee. Be a good person. That's where you should get your self-worth. And that kind of self-worth you can develop and evolve. So I think, this idea of self-esteem, it's all part of this toxic society we live in, that I have to be a certain way. And I if all the women in ISKCON become gurus and have thousands of disciples, and I never have more than 100 disciples, what kind of man am I? And I'm such a failure to Prabhupada. What nonsense is that? I was like, I'm happy. Go, girl. I'm happy. Of course, this is a controversial issue, so I'm not promoting female Diksha gurus or not. That's another topic. I'm just giving an example because I have disciples. And so I'm giving an example of a woman outdid me as a guru. Then all of a sudden I lose my self-esteem. What kind of nonsense is that? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, fantastic. We need to make disciples all over the world. Fantastic. Why not? More gurus, more disciples. So being secure within yourself is that I'm okay. I do my best. And that's all I can do is my best. And I may not be the smartest or most talented, but I do what I can. And I'm okay with it. And once you're okay, like Bimal, you were at that workshop we did on humility. And the mantra was, I'm okay being me. I think that was the mantra, right? I'm okay being me. Once you're okay being me, no intelligent woman or powerful woman is ever going to throw you off. You're just going to think, wow, that woman is really smart. I appreciate that. I'm impressed. I'm inspired. That's how because if you're not secure in yourself, then when there's somebody who has qualities that could inspire you, it'll just depress you instead of inspire you. So you want to live your life being depressed when you're around people who are smart instead of getting inspired by them? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, Radhapriya is so smart. I'm hiding in the closet. I'm not going to face the world because I could never do well in chemistry, and she's a chemist. No, I'm inspired. She did well academically, so that inspires me. Oh, she's smart, she's dedicated. Okay, so what I do in my life, I should be smart about that and dedicated, just like she is in chemistry. Then I get inspired rather than intimidated. So why would you want to allow yourself to get intimidated by everyone, because it has such a bad effect on you, when if you're okay being yourself, then you can get inspired by everyone who does better than you. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, the more I talk about these things, the more I see how messed up society is and how messed up it has made us. It's so sad. Just growing up in this toxic society, we end up doubting ourselves for no reason and, competing with the other sex, and men trying to be women, women trying to be men. And no wonder we have unlimited numbers of problems. It's just the culture is like so... abnormal is the best word I can give it. We grow up in an abnormal culture, and so we become abnormal. And I've said many times, most of you don't even know how vegetables grow. Does a carrot, where does a carrot grow? On a tree? Carrot trees, yeah. Yeah, that sounds right, carrot trees. What about tomato? Tomato, yeah, they grow underground, right? No, they grow on vines. Carrots grow underground, in case you didn't know. But most of us, or many of us, don't even know how vegetables grow. That's like pretty sick. Like you don't even know how a vegetable grows. underground, on a vine, on a tree, on a bush. Okra. You know how okra grows? Who knows? Give me a smiley or something if you know how okra grows, because we're growing okra in our backyard right over there. We're growing it. So I know how it grows because I see it. How does okra grow? What does it grow on? Does it grow under the ground? Does it grow on a bush, on a vine, above the ground? It grows basically on a big, tall, bushy vine. It's like a little of both. And, it's about, the one we have is about 7 feet high. It's taller than me. If you don't know how an okra grows, I feel sorry for you. You need to go out to a farm and just walk around. So, and nobody will think, well, there's anything abnormal about not knowing how vegetable grows. But if you actually think about it in terms of the history of the world, the last 100, 200 years is the first generation of people that have no idea how food grows. They think it grows off, shelves in supermarkets. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg of the insanity, of the abnormalness that we work in, live in cement jungles, work under fluorescent lights 12 hours a day, eat junk food. I mean, just go on and on. No wonder we're like messed up. How could you not be? I mean, the fact that if you're not messed up living in this kind of society, wow, you're amazing. My dandavats to you, because you have to be messed up living like this to some degree or another. And we all are. We're all messed up in some way. We had parents that weren't good parents, some of us. We had siblings that were very abusive. We had teachers that were bad examples. We had to look at advertising that was simply catering to our sexual instincts to get us to buy. I mean, this is what we're surrounded to. Breathing in air that shouldn't even be called air. Eating food that's laced with cancer-causing pesticides. I mean, where does it end? So, and then Prabhupada is talking about what's real and natural, and we're like, no, that's not right, that's wrong, that's not politically correct. I mean, we're so out of it that when the Guru speaks, sometimes we think, no, that's wrong. Yeah. In America, I think 20% of the population suffers from depression, and that's only 20% that went to the doctors and told them they were depressed. What about the other 80% who didn't tell them? Well, maybe the other 70% and 10% devotees who are happy chanting. We should be compassionate, understand context, yes. Katie's with us. Africa is a huge potential economically and spiritually, but they will not give up easily Catholic Church. But Prabhupada never tried to get anyone to change. He just tried to, like you say, Catholic Tamasic Church. Prabhupada was like, okay, take shelter of Jesus, just give up the meat, and so you can get out of Tamagun. Anyway, Catholicism is a good foundation for preaching because people already believe in God and believe in austerity and so forth. So we can take advantage of that. Katie says, I find it quite interesting. Christianity was imposed on them by missionaries. I think she's talking about Africans. And during the time of slavery, and yet they are defending it so harshly and their beliefs are so strong. I think that it's in their life, it's because it gave them some sort of hope. Satisfaction that after they die, they will be freed from their misery, yes. And at that point in their life, that was the only hope. Yeah. Obviously, you look at the world, and you think, wow, I'm living in this world for Krishna's service, otherwise I wouldn't want to be here. And so that I can transcend, that I can hear Bhagavatam and do kirtan and chant japa and transcend this world and eventually go back to Krishna, that keeps us alive. That's what gives us life. I think it was Narottam Das or Lochan Das Thakur said, Hearing the pastimes of Krishna gives us life in this miserable world. That's what keeps us going, keeps us happy. So yeah, that's true. That's what religion does. It gives you the hope that aside from this world, there's something a lot better. Because if this is all there is, then all the materialists are doing is just trying to, through technology and scientific advancement, is just try to reform this world so it obeys our every command, so that, at some point in time, the weather will be perfect, everyone will be beautiful and intelligent, there'll be no more disease. So they're trying, it's like unfortunate because Krishna created this world so you wouldn't like it, so you would get out of it, and scientists are trying to create this world so you will like it and you want to stay here. So it's actually a great disservice, isn't it? It's an interesting thought, isn't it? When we see the world bad and we think, well, this is how Krishna created it, and this is also a reaction to this tamasic way of living, so we learn from it. But the scientists want to artificially create paradise, like Ravana wanted to create a stairway to heaven. It doesn't work that way. Katie, how can we as strong women step back into our true woman nature? Woman nature is nurturing. Woman nature is to be in a helping, supportive position of the man. So sometimes you may know better than a man, but you have to approach the man in a female way. If you like, I could help you. I know how to do this. If you want, I could help you do this. Would that be okay? Instead of, let me do it, you don't know what you're doing. Men don't like hearing from a woman that they're stupid, or they don't know what they're doing, or there's something wrong with them. But if a woman comes in from a nurturing, motherly perspective and say, oh, I majored in this in university, and if you need someone to help, I would be willing to help. And under your breath you're saying, you have no idea how to do this, and if you were smart, you would have already asked me, but because you think you're a man, and you think you know everything, you didn't ask me. So you know that. That's how the man thinks, but you don't tell them that. You just come on as the nurturing, motherly woman who takes this subordinate helping position because that works for the man. And then the man says, oh, that would be nice. Because you're coming on this way, you're not a threat. You're a helper. Helpers are not threats. Oh, you're going to help me do this. You're good at this. No threat to me. Men, as Bimal was saying, women are often threatening to men, especially insecure men. I saw this woman psychologist. She was speaking about family life, and she's very, very smart, very, very well known. And I was thinking that when some men hear this woman speak, they're intimidated because she's so smart. And insecure men don't like that. So women, you have to be aware of that men may feel uncomfortable around intelligent women unless the intelligent women come across in a more subordinate, humble, submissive role. Because that's the language men hear. So you just understand that. Does that make sense? Men hear that, can I help you? Do you need help? Oh, that's very nice what you're doing. I can help. I have 4 PhDs in this topic. If maybe you might, you're a high school dropout, I understand that, but I still respect you. But maybe you might need some help in this area, and if you do, you might consider, asking me. I'd be willing to. No, I'm just saying, if that ever comes across your mind. You have to do that. It's just what you have to do. That's just the way the psychology works. And so when women say, no, but we're smarter, we're this and that, equal rights pushing, it doesn't work well with the men. It only works well with men who will allow themselves to become more female in order that you can push them over. And then you end up with a society of men who are no longer men because you emasculated men because you were too heavy. So you don't want to do that. So you just have to know how to do it. Sringarvat says, explain male mentality. Oh, it's easy. Just give them sex and food and they're happy. That's the book on male psychology. And that's it. That's the book. That's all you need to know, basically. And if you ask any men, is that true? They'll think about it. Yeah, that sounds about right. Sex and food, I'm happy. Yeah, that's about right. You don't have to understand much more. That's about it. But we could add a few things. They like to be alone. They like their independence. And they emotionally, most men have no idea how to relate to the emotional world or relate to the emotions of their wife. They weren't constituted that way. So females, like, he's laughing on that one. The truth is funny, isn't it? Men like to be respected, as we're saying. They like to be served, helped, appreciated. And they don't like to be criticized, pulled down, because the male ego is, doesn't like to be pulled down. And they like their space. And they don't like to be expected to be emotionally supportive because it doesn't come natural. They don't like to talk about relationships. I'm generalizing. If you say, let's talk about a relationship, most men will say, why? Everything's fine. And the women will say, no, there's things we need to talk about. And the men like, no, there's nothing to talk about. Everything. Men don't like talking about relationships. Men like going out and conquering the world. Men like doing something. They like doing things, What are we going to do today? What can we conquer? What can we accomplish? And the woman says, well, let's just hang out and talk. Yeah, but we have to do something. We have to accomplish something, Can we talk while I build this? No, I need you to look at me and talk. Well, but I have to build this. Why do I have to, So, if that doesn't work for you as a woman, then you have to educate the man and say, well, as a woman, it works for me when we talk. If you actually look at me and you don't do anything else, I know you want to build this, and I know, but you just have to understand my nature. And you have to understand his nature. And so, but anyway, as I said, if their stomach is full and they have sex, they're happy. Now, you say, but devotees, they're Brahmins. Yeah, devotees are different. They're Brahmins. Sex is not that important. Prasadam is important and not that important. We fast some days, and some days we miss meals and we have service. Yeah. Prajananda says, I really appreciate this class. Is there an easy way to explain to a new person who may have hang-ups about some of Prabhupada's statements, like women are less intelligent? Is there an easy way? Yeah, I think all the things I said. We have to define what he means by intelligent. And, the first thing you could say to the woman is, I know you're an intelligent woman, and I know this is a difficult thing, and it was difficult for me, and it doesn't mean you're less intelligent as you consider it. It means men and women have different kinds of intelligence, and men are also less intelligent. And it means that, you have to talk about the women protection, that men fill in areas women lack. But because the Shastra is speaking to women, it doesn't talk about how women fill in where men lack. And it doesn't really emphasize the areas women are intelligent where men are not, because the Shastra is for men. And this, as we said last week, and say, so you ask the woman, do you like clothes? Do you like jewelry? Do you like shoes? Do you like purses? Probably she'll say, yeah. And say, do you think you like it more than men? And she'll probably say, yeah. Do you think you're more settled down? Like you think you're ready to get married before most men? She'll say, yeah. You think men tend to be irresponsible and, they don't want to settle? Yeah. And say, well, those qualities are what this Shastra is defining as less intelligent, more domesticated. That's not how we define less intelligent, but from a strictly spiritual perspective, that's a material attachment, and material attachment equals less intelligent. So, but actually we see materially it's a good quality, it's stabilizing, because you're stable and you need that emotional connection to the home and family and so on to be able to raise children. So it's misunderstood. And then you just tell her the statement that anyone who's interested in spirituality is the most intelligent. And if you become Krishna conscious, because you're interested in Krishna conscious, it means you're more intelligent than most of the men in this world are. So, if you want a short answer and say, less intelligent means you're spiritually ignorant, more intelligent means you're spiritually inclined. You seem to be spiritually inclined, therefore I would say you're the most intelligent. This is a generalization that women tend to be more attached to material things than men. That's how the Shastra defined intelligence. That's what it means. As we know, there's plenty of men who like things and material things more than women, vice versa. It's a generalization. And our spiritual master said, you're not a woman, and if you think you're a woman, then you're not intelligent. So you understand that to devote yourself to spiritual life is the most intelligent. If you do that, you're the most intelligent. And don't ever let anybody convince you that you're a woman, you're a spirit soul. And something like that. That's how I would explain it. You are from a rare species. I'm a rare species. Well, I hope all the men can become a rare species like me. Because I just, I was talking with a devotee yesterday, and there were some situations that were upsetting her. And I said, really, these may be upsetting situations, but we have to come to a point in our life where we just can't allow situations to upset us. It's just so. Men are a certain way, women are a certain way, and we're not trained properly and this and that. But, we have to do the right thing ourselves, and we can't allow ourselves to be so upset about everything. How do we differentiate between protection and overprotection? Overprotection would be control, where he says, you can't go out, it's 5:59, and your curfew is 6 o'clock, and I don't trust you. And of course, if there's a riot outside, yeah, obviously he would say that, but when the man starts to treat the woman a bit like she's 6 years old, and she's in a concentration camp, yeah, that would be, I don't think you call it overprotection, I think you would call it insanity, insane exploitation. So, some people have the very strong need to control, and when that's embodied in a male form in connection with a woman, it can get very dysfunctional. And so women should be very aware that some men have the potential to be dysfunctional, and they should have their eyes open, especially when they're courting, to see if this man has control issues by which he would treat his wife like she's 6 years old. Now you can eat, but you can't eat this. Okay, stop eating. You've been eating 20 minutes. That's enough. No, you think I'm making this up? No, this actually happens. How do I know it happens? Because people tell me this all the time. This man is doing this. This man is doing this. Oh, you want the book? Well, you'll get it on Sunday. Because we have 300 books here in Alachua. If you're in America and you want my book, write me. We have 300. Living the Wisdom of Bhakti. Okay. Ana Lohana. Whoops. Ana Lohana. Patiri says, I am Greek, and as being Greek, I am Kshatriya. Okay. In Greek, the strongest warriors were the Amazon women. And most important goddess, Athena, wisdom, is a woman. It's true. I agree, there are women Kshatras. I don't mess with women Kshatras. So the Vedic point of view, I'm struggled. No, in the Vedic point of view, there are women Kshatras. How do I know? Because there's a temple in Konark. It's outside of Jagannath Puri. And there are carvings on the outside of the temple, and it has carvings of women with spears fighting lions. And so I inquired from the tour guides there. I said, what's up? And he said, well, these women were Kshatras. They went on and fought their battles. And if you study the history of India, you'll see there are certain women Kshatras. But it's like Prabhupada said, a woman could become a guru, but not so many. So there will be women Kshatras, but not obviously as many as men, because it's more of a male sport, so to speak, male occupation. So, there's always exceptions. I mean, guys, there's women on this planet who could, in a matter of like 10 seconds, knock you out. They know how to fight. They're professional fighters or wrestlers. And you may think you're big, rough, and tough, but it's just a reality. You can't deny that reality. It is. So we can't deny that there are women who are kshatriyas. Whether that's the best thing for them to do or how they should fight. Because like in the military, women are being raped left and right in the military. Did you know that? So men can't fight alongside and train alongside with women without having these problems. So if women are going to be kshatriyas, it has to be done in a way which doesn't cause these problems. But I think this underscores the point that that you can't generalize. Okay, if a woman has this nature, my point is, this is my feeling. If you have a nature because you're a kshatriya, just, if there's a problem in the temple and something, some people are being harassed, you can naturally, because you have that nature and strength, if there's no men around to resolve the issue, you could resolve it. But once you resolve it, go back to being a woman. Don't, walk around and tell all the guys, listen, if you get out of line, you'll be next. That's not female. That's not what we want to do. So you may have the ability, which is very male, but you have to carry yourself very female other times, otherwise it won't work. And it's just like Prabhupada said, we should be more humble than a blade of grass, but if someone is attacking a devotee, we're not humble. We're going to attack. We're going to counterattack. We're going to defend. And then after we defend, then we go back to being more humble than a blade of grass. So that's the idea. It's like a swabhav, your nature, your female nature. But because you have this kshatriya nature, but that's manifest in your varna, in your occupation. But when you're back from your occupation in your ashram as a grihasta, don't beat up your husband. It's not going to work. Now, if some robber comes and is stealing something, beat him up. That's fine. Do you think the society would be better without the hippie movement? Well, we wouldn't have it. We wouldn't have had a movement. Yeah, if we didn't come from the hippie background, probably it would be a little easier. But if we weren't hippies, we never would have become devotees. So, what to do? There's a group of devotees in South Africa that are like modern-day hippies. They're the Afrikaans. But they're like hippies in the way they think, but they're not hippies in degraded. They're very well-educated and very cultured people. But they have this alternative way of thinking. So if we came from that background, yeah, we would probably wouldn't have certain problems, and individually and communally. But we didn't. And Prabhupada appreciated the hippies because they were renounced. And somehow or other, he wasn't so concerned about how degraded they were because he had faith that Mahamantra could clear up the problem. We have it in Greece, and I love it. What do you have? Women kshatriyas. 1 in the 3 in the UK have mental health problems. Oh my God, that's because the sun never shines. 1 male suicide every 2 hours last year. Oh my God. It's all because there's no sun. That's the problem. You should create an artificial sun. Suicide will go down. Jenny's a mental health professional. She said in the winter, problems rise. In the summer, she's not so busy in the summer. She's very busy in the winter. So if you're a depressed person, take vitamin D, because that's what you get from the sun. So, yes. Great definition of men mentality. Give me sex, give me food, and I'm happy. Yeah. Unfortunately true. Of course, devotees, give them Bhagavatam, give them Charanamrita, give them the holy name, then they'll be happy. But men should read Men Are From Mars. There's many books that men need to read, and women should read it also. Rishikesh says, is there any reason why Shastras focus more on male and spirituality? They were written for men, because men went to the Gurukula. The women didn't go. Women, at the age of 12, they got a little education and then they were trained to be wives. And that was the culture. And so the spiritual education was given to the women through the husband, and so all the spiritual education Well, it's basically given by men for men. So, you could switch it around. When it says men, you could say women. If that works for you. In some cases, it will work. So, but that's the way we understand. It was meant for men, but ultimately it's meant for everybody. We know that. But in that particular environment, it came out for men, so it has that perspective, and it addresses more of the male issues. When the man husband is smart, you as an intelligent woman can give him some training so he can understand better about woman nature. Is that right? Yeah, definitely, 100%. You have to. Because most men, if not all men, do not understand a lot about women nature, and therefore you have this relationship with your husband and say, I want to explain to you what is the female nature so we can have a better relationship, and allow him to explain the male nature so that we can understand one another. So I don't treat you like a man, you don't treat me like a woman, because you're a woman, and I tend to treat you like a man because I think women are like men because I don't know what women are like, and vice versa. So yes, that is very, very important. What makes you tick, not just as a woman, but just as a person. Like, what are your hopes, dreams, needs, intentions, visions, likes, dislikes? This is necessary to know these things if you're married or want to be married about the other person. So it's not just the nature, it's like everything. I was explaining to my wife the other day how, I forget what the context, but I was explaining something about how I was raised and how my parents were, to explain to her, well, you see that sometimes I'm like this. Well, that's because in our family it was like this. So and I know you're sometimes like this, but I know her family, so I know why she's like that. So it helps. Oh, that's why my wife's like this, because this is what her mother's like. Or that's why I'm like this, because this is what my father's like. So it's good to know these things. So otherwise we can take it against one another. Why are you like this? Well, I'm like that because that's how we were in our family. Nitai sublime kata, that your heart may stop, otherwise Radha Krishna Prema is going to be only a myth. That's from Nityananda Das. Something, all right, some nectar. You're trying to douse us with nectar where we're talking about all kinds of toxic relationships. You're spoiling the party. What's wrong with you? You will get an autograph on Sunday. Anyone who wants my book, I'll see you on Sunday if you're near Alachua. Katie doesn't need bad weather to be depressed. Okay, you're especially qualified. I've been in a situation where I tried explaining male devotee the nature of a woman, and in particular my nature, and he completely dismissed it because his sannyasi guru and Shastra say something else. So, ladies, in general, I would say, if you're talking to a man who doesn't listen, this is a man you're not married to, you may want to consider that he's not the person you want to marry. Because one of the qualifications of a husband is that he can listen. And when you say what Shastra says and what his guru says, as we were saying, it's from male perspective. And sannyasis obviously are coming from the male perspective. They don't have a lot of experience, or perhaps no experience. Perhaps they were never married. So, I don't want to fault the sannyasis, but some of us who are grihastas think that sannyasis should not actually speak much about grihasta life unless they were married and they had a good marriage and they really feel that they understand it in a balanced and complete holistic way. Otherwise, a lot of us as grihastas, especially teachers and Brahmins, feel that many other enunciates who speak about grihasta life don't get it. And therefore, it's better that they would defer to the grihastas who are in grihasta ashram, who have successful marriages, speak about it. Not the grihastas that had failed marriages, not the people who were never married. In general, they're not always the best people. Sometimes they understand. I'm amazed. Like some sannyasis, they understand it. Like, wow. They've got a brain to understand this male-female thing. But I would say in general they don't. And this is the feeling of grihasta educators. In general, it's better that renunciates don't give so much advice about grihasta life. just because they may say something wrong which could create a problem in a relationship. It could actually cause divorce. And now I know you're thinking, how could you say this? But I've heard things that renunciates say that I personally felt could lay the seed to disruption of a marriage if not explained and understood properly from different angles of vision. So I'm only saying this because it's just an observation. It's not a critique of the sannyas ashram. It's not a critique of every sannyasi. It's just like when a sannyasi speaks about grihastha life, you may want to ask a grihastha you respect for their opinion as well if what he said maybe it doesn't feel right. Maybe not sound right is not the word. It doesn't feel right. There's something doesn't seem right. You may want to discuss. And the other point is that if you're courting a man and you can't talk to him, then I would not suggest continuing the relationship until he is willing to be able to listen and understand and acknowledge without judgment your ideas and feelings. Because to have a healthy marriage, both partners have to recognize without judgment another person's feelings, needs, desires, hopes, and dreams. And if you say, Katie, to your husband to be, I want to live on a farm in this place, and he says, that's the stupidest idea I ever heard, and you could never live on a farm, you're such a lazy bum like that. Why would you ever in a lifetime of Brahma want to marry such a person? If you do, ladies, if after being with a man like that, you still want to pursue a relationship with him, especially if numerous times he demonstrates his inability to be empathetic, to understand you, if you still want to continue a relationship with that man, then I would have to say, and please don't get offended, you are less intelligent. That is if you ask me, Brajananda said, how do we explain less intelligent? This is my definition of less intelligent. That you're with a man who is abusive, who doesn't know how to be a man, who doesn't know how to listen, who doesn't know how to respect you, and you stay with him, that's less intelligent. Now, you might say, circumstantially, there's security issues, we're married, and yeah, okay, but you got married in the first place. That was less intelligent. You allowed yourself to be attracted by something you shouldn't. So this is very, very important, and I've been very blunt about this. And in my ripe old age now, I'm feeling the need to be more and more blunt because there's a lot of stuff going on that shouldn't be going on, and someone has to call it, and I decided I'm going to be the one to call it. And so this is something that I'm calling. If a man judges you for how you feel, that is the biggest red flag, and it's the only red flag you need. If he judges you for how you feel, there will be no communication. If there's no communication, you have no relationship. That's it. It should be over, finished. And if you cannot explain to him why it has to be finished, that's the second reason why it should be finished. Now, if you could explain to him why the relationship isn't going to work because he doesn't listen, and he listens to that, wow, that's good. You're making progress. But if he can't listen and he gets angry and he faults you for saying that, that is your red flag. That is your red flag. Well, we're going long and I have to leave somewhere at 10 o'clock and I haven't eaten yet. Hurry up. You're all stimulated now. Wow. I'm hoping I can word this right. Often in a relationship, in the beginning, the couple may not understand the other's nature. But they're both willing to learn. So is that good enough qualification? Yeah, if they're honest enough that once they understand the nature to recognize that the natures are different and they're not in that process becoming so attached that once they recognize that they're different, it's not going to work. They're so attached they can't separate. That's the problem. So the point is, if you are looking for a woman or your woman looking for a man, be very careful in the beginning because even if you're not compatible, there's a good chance you'll become attached. And then once you become attached and you realize these incompatibilities or you see the red flags, you may not be able to give it up because, I bet I really love him. This is the other unintelligent statement of you women, which qualifies you if you do this And it qualifies a man also as being less intelligent. But I love him. Yeah, but he beats you up. He doesn't listen to you. He treats you like you're 6 years old. He, locks you in the house. He won't give you any money. And he tells you what you can eat. Yeah, I know, but I love him. Now, you think I'm exaggerating? Yeah, I'm exaggerating, but not a lot. Believe me, I'm not exaggerating a lot. I see this all the time. And this is why women need to be protected by men, because they need to be protected from the men who don't know how to protect them, and that's called the father. And if you don't have a father, then find somebody in your community who can be like a father to you to protect you, so that you can be clear about the man you want to marry. Because sometimes if he's got big muscles and blue eyes, that's all you need, and he can abuse you, and you'll say, I love him. And that's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. And it's unfortunate because it's not going to work, and you're going to end up a single parent. I want one book delivered to Miami. I will send my info. Yes. Thanks so much for your internet classes. Always are. Appreciate the absolute truth. Thank you for sharing your realization. You're welcome, Sringavat. They aren't married. Now I forgot the context, Bhajananda. Yeah, they're not married. The point is, okay, let's say I'm going to buy a gun, and I'm choosing different guns and rifles and machine guns and like that, right? I should know when I'm choosing the gun what is within my pay scale, what's going to work for me, because if I take this machine gun and I don't know what I'm doing, I may end up falling over and, shooting it, or falling over and killing somebody, So if you're thinking about another person, as far as possible, when you start, you should have as many indications as possible that this is suitable, like this has potential. Not just because they look good or because they're nice devotees. But marriage, those are things which are necessary, but not what's going to make or break a marriage. If your husband is grade A level devotee or B or C, that's not going to make or break your marriage. If you got blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes, it's not going to break your marriage. If he does nice kirtan, it's not going to make or break your marriage. There are things that are going to make or break your marriage, and one of them is the ability for him to listen, for him not to judge, to respect you, to understand your values and respect them. And if you don't have that from the get-go, why even pursue it? You're wasting your time. And then you allow yourself to become attached. Is this man, a woman, you're looking at a man, you're going, is this man actually capable of being a husband? I'm looking at him and he seems to act like he's 8 years old. Is he capable of being a husband? I don't think so. So, you have to look at these things, or vice versa. This woman seems to lack self-esteem. She seems to have no self-esteem. So one day I said, I was thinking instead of, doing this, we should do that. And then she says, what do you mean? You think there's something wrong with me? I said, no, I didn't say there's anything wrong with you. I just said, I think we should do that. Well, you mean my decision to do that was wrong? No, I just thought this would be, So you start seeing these things, go, oh, okay, I'm dealing with a woman who lacks self-esteem. Okay, now I know what I'm getting into, is that we have to talk about this. This could be a problem. So you have to see these things in the beginning. Otherwise, I'm with a man now who's been divorced 3 times. Okay, what does that mean? 3 strikes and you're out. That's what it means. So I might mean that. I'm just saying, you think in your head, okay, he's been married 3 times. All right, I have to take that in consideration. I wonder why. Maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe it was. Maybe he's a different man now than he was when he was divorced. You have to look at all these things. Right? Hare Krishna. Emotional intelligence, yes. You're not exaggerating. I've been there, done that. Yeah, I don't exaggerate. I'm just telling you like it is. But there's not a platform in the Bhagavatam class to, talk about certain things, because you're talking about Shastra, and Shastra is talking about ideals. Here we're talking about real life. This is what actually happens, and we need to discuss what actually happens. You want to know why? Because it actually happens. Oh, okay, that makes sense. We should talk about what happens because it actually happens. Yeah, very smart to talk about what actually happens because it actually happens. And the problem is we don't always talk about what actually happens. We talk about what should happen. But we need to talk about what actually happens also because, as I said, it actually happens. And when it actually happens, we have to know how to deal with it. Otherwise, we talk about what is supposed to happen, which usually doesn't happen or doesn't happen all the time. So yeah, we study what's supposed to happen. We know what the ideal is. This is the ideal. But what is actually happening, we have to be able to deal with it. That's my point. So that's why we talk about these things. So now I have to run because I have to go pick up something and it's an hour away from here. And the lady's expecting me. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you tomorrow. We didn't get to read anything today. I study for these topics. I ruminate on them. And then sometimes when we begin the class, I just start talking about what's on my mind and you ask questions. And then boom, 2 hours gone and finished. That was fast 2 hours, wasn't it? I can't believe that. Anyway, all this is being recorded. It's being put up on YouTube if you want to hear it again. And I'm recording them audio, which will go on my SoundCloud eventually. We haven't uploaded it on SoundCloud yet. But audio is faster to download. And so we do that also. So, yeah, as I said, I've just recently felt a very strong need to be very, very real. I mean, you all know that I try to be real, but I felt the need to be more real. Just like we need to talk about what actually happens because we're dealing with what actually happens. We also need to talk about ideals. There's no question. We need to talk about Shastra. What is the Shastra ideal? What is the standard? But we need to talk about what is happening today in your life and all the conditioning that's going through your head that's causing you to act in certain ways. We need to talk about that stuff. So, well, somebody's here to work on something. Okay, so I'm going. Blessings to all of you. This is what blessings means. Hare Krishna. Hope you're all well. Have a great day and be Krishna conscious. We'll see you tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.